I thought I did so well this month in terms of buying less books after the insane 40 books that I went through last month, but I still bought 26, so let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Chris, and today's video serves as the May book haul. Like I said, I thought I did a little bit better. I did a little bit better, but considering that I was trying to get down from 28 a couple of months ago, got to 26, went to 40, now I'm back at 26. Are we really winning? Who knows? But I do have more books, so I guess in a way, we are. Now, a lot of these are chunks in series, and I do have quite a few novellas here on this list, so they're nice, quick and easy reads. I did spend significantly less money on books this month because I went to a book haul and got 6 books for like 13 AUD, which is a steal. And yeah, let's just jump into it and try not make this a 20-minute video. 2 books that I did pick up this month, which I've already talked about in my TBR video, so I'm not going to go into detail, is The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang and Marauder by L.L. McRae. If you are interested in the synopses of those books, do go and check out my June TBR, which I'll link up above if you're interested. Now, the next 3 that I've purchased are part of an experimental idea of episodic fantasy. So these are novellas that get released in quick succession to basically have an epic fantasy story in an episodic-like fashion. So I've bought books 1, 2, and 3 of a series called Lost in the Vast, and they're actually released and called episodes as they're released. So book number 1 is Lost in the Vast, book number 2, St. Martin, and book number 3 is Cursed. So these books come out in these palatable novella-sized chunks, and I believe from talking to the authors that the idea is to release them quite quickly so the reader doesn't have to wait too long to see what happens next. Now, I love this idea that's sort of coming from a place of authors who release chapters, which in itself is an episodic kind of way to release your book. So you release a chapter a week, you're keeping readers on the edge of their seat, but this way you get a full novella length story every time one is released. So I picked up the first 3, and I hope to get to some of these as a wild card sooner rather than later. Who knows, there might be some that you can just blitz through because they're really easy reads, but I'll know when I get to them. Speaking of novella length books, I've also picked up the Resplendence prequel series called Kimeno by Ross Kingston. Now, Ross Kingston is an Aussie author, and I'm looking forward to his first full-length book in this series, which is I can't pronounce this series name, so I'm not going to try, but he's written a prequel series which was so successful that it was meant to be 1 book and turned into 3. So he's got 3 novellas before jumping into the first full-length novel called Blink of the Sun, coming out later this month. So I've picked up Kimeno, Resplendence, and Jade and Silver. These are 3 novella-sized books that are a prequel novella series to the book that's coming out later in June, and I'm really looking forward to jumping into these. Again, I think this is a series I'm going to read sort of all at once before jumping into the next one, so it may be a novella series that I read in a month and then start book 1 the month after. I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to getting to these. And just look at these covers, aren't they stunning? I love this art style, and I'm looking forward to giving Mr. Kingston a go in the future. The next ebook that I picked up was The Folding Knife by K.J. Parker. Now, the Library of Alexandria finally got to me. I have resisted buying Parker for a number of months, and now that there is a standalone that I know about, which has got quite high praise, not just from him, but from other people as well, I was like, fine, you win, I will buy my first KJ Parker, and then I bought a second in a book haul, which we'll get to later. So, this one says, Basso the Magnificent, Basso the Great, Basso the Wise, Basso the Murderer, the first citizen of the Visani Republic, is an extraordinary man. He is ruthless, cunning, and above all, lucky. He brings wealth, power, and prestige to his people, but with power comes unwanted attention, and Basso must defend his nation and himself from threats foreign and domestic. In a lifetime of crucial decisions, he's only ever made one mistake. One mistake, though, that can be enough. Sounds interesting. I've heard good things. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I have been whittled down, and now I have KJ Parker on my e-shelf and my physical shelf. Moving on. Next one I picked up was the Written by Bengali. Now, I picked up The Forever King either last month or the month before, and I didn't realise there was a series that came beforehand, starting with The Written. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to this series because if I'm telling the truth, I want to read the Chasing Graves series by Bengali first. I've got the first book physically here, but I really love these colours, these white covers with just a pop of colour. Really, I'm such a sucker for it. I've picked up Oil and Dust. This is the Elemental Artist Book 1 by Jamie Farley. When all has been lost, we find ourselves. Out of the ashes of destruction, a new one has arisen. The plagues of the past, the worship of greed and pursuit of power are gone. Now the communities that remain in this post-apocalyptic world focus on creating connections, on forging futures filled with family and love, and all with the help of hard work, hope, and a little bit of magic. Artist Matthew Sugiyama knows this well. Travelling the countryside in search of the family he lost as a child, he trades his art for supplies. He uses his honed magic to redraw the boundaries of reality to fashion a world that is better for those he meets. Following glimpses of visions half seen, Matthew and the friends he encounters along the way will travel a path from light to darkness and back again. The road where things lost in the past can only be found in the love of the present and the hope for the future. And he'll travel this path wherever it leads, from joy to sorrow, from tears to laughter, because Matthew is the elemental artist. He knows that through dangers arise, humanity will always triumph in a world he has painted in shades of oil and dust. It sounds like wholesome fantasy, sort of along the lines of The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. I'm really interested in this side of fantasy coming to the forefront in more books. This is an indie self-pub pick which I'm reading as part of my own SPFBO goals this year, and it just sounds delightful, so hopefully I will love it when I get to it. The next one I picked up is a little out of my comfort zone. This is sci-fi romance, and it's called The Invisible Tether by JP McDonald. I follow this author on Instagram, like a lot of what he says about writing, very, very honest. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about this one, but I picked it up on ebook on a sale. So we'll see how we go. And it's set in my home country of Australia. It says Cooper Belrose and his friends gear up for a sporting tournament in tropical North Queensland. I live in Queensland, not the tropical bit. I live in the city. I wish I lived in the tropical bit. For a week of carefree fun, in an unnerving twist of fate, a cryptic flight attendant hijacks the plane, altering their lives forever. Not fun, not great for them. After surviving the plane crash, Cooper and his friends learn that the flight attendant was part of a much larger threat, not only to their existence, but to the entire human race. In their desperation to return home and find answers, they discover abnormal abilities within themselves activated by the crash and the threat of an opposing force. All these newfound abilities wield an edge over their enemies. As they strive to combat each twist and turn, Cooper and his friends learn the value of teamwork by navigating the space between life and death. If faced with an imminent threat to the human race, how would you and your friends take up the fight? I don't know if me and my friends would take up the fight. I would think about it, but then hope someone else would do it, and I want to sit back and just be a sheep. I'm a sheep. On to the physical books. The first three I picked up were books 1, 2, and 3 of the Nightrunner series by Lynn Flewelling. Hopefully I pronounced one of those right. The first is Luck in the Shadows. Don't put that in the laptop, it'll fall over. The second is Stalking Darkness. And the third is Traitor's Moon. This is a 7-book series. I've been collecting some larger series to try and sink my teeth into over the next couple of years. Trying to move out of my comfort zone of the trilogy stage. I love me a trilogy. I think they're so neatly packed and very pleasing, and you don't have enough books to really fall off the wayside too much. But I do want to start reading some of these bigger series going forward, particularly as the channel hits the next milestone goal, which will be where I open up to some buddy reads. So I want to have some series, some long-running series that I can do buddy reads with. The next one that I picked up was The Girl Who Could Move Shit With Her Mind. This is because I picked up the second book unintentionally last month, and I didn't pick up the first book, so I went and picked up the first book of the Jackson Ford series, and I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but this is urban fantasy with some pretty fun covers. I want a t-shirt in these covers. I would wear it all the time, but I've got that one now for when I eventually get to it. That may be one that I start when I have a holiday in Perth, where I'm moving to later next year. You don't care. This book haul is a mess. The next one I picked up was Mogworld. This is by Yahtzee Croshaw? Yahtzee Croshaw. Written by the same author that wrote We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. A friend of mine mentioned this author. Now, it does say on the back that it is British humour. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but this cover was pretty rad. So I picked up one book. If I like it, I'll go ahead and buy the Yahtzee Croshaw backlist, but I believe it's more sort of sci-fi, dystopia. It's meant to be funny. I don't know how I feel about humour in dystopian settings, so I will give this one a go at some point. Next up, I have picked up a book that I have mishandled and bent. This is Master Assassins by Robert V.S. Reddick. This is book 1 of the Fire Sacraments. Not gonna lie, this was a cover buy for me. We have a big cat-like thing and some adventuring happening. That cat looks terrifying. Wouldn't want to be on the other side of that. This one says, Kundry and Mektu are the closest of brothers, the most bitter rivals. Village boys drafted into the army of a mad woman prophet. Facing death in an endless war, they struggle each day to hide their crumbling faith. Kundry can manage, but Meku, nervous, impulsive, loudmouth, is at breaking point, convinced that a murderous spirit is stalking the camp and that he himself may be its target. But a night of violence leaves the brothers with holy blood on their hands. Mistaken for professional killers, they have just one path of escape, into the some Reduth Jal. Don't quote me on that. A sprawling desert where the landscape is as deadly as the men and monsters it contains. On their heads is an irresistible bounty. Hot on their heels are the prophet's death squads and a terrible servant in the form of a demonic child. And ahead lies a reckoning with their own family's darkest secret. A secret that binds the brothers together even as it tears the world apart. That sounds great. Has a little random, what do you call it, endorsement by Patrick Rothfuss on the front. Whatever you make of that. The next one and the last new book that I picked up was Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe. This is the first in a new, well, not new, there's 3 books out, space opera series that I'm hoping to get to later this year. I know very little about it. The last thing Sandra remembers is her gunship exploding. She expected to be recovered by salvage medics and to awaken in friendly hands, patched up and ready to rejoin the fight. Instead, she wakes up 230 years later, that's rough, on a deserted enemy starship called the Light of Beresis, or as he prefers to call himself, Bero. Bero tells Sandra the war is lost, that the entire star system is dead. But is that the full story? After all, in the vastness of space, anything is possible. I picked this up because I love this blueprint art forming into a spaceship. I think that's really cool. I've heard really good things about this series for people who are fairly new to sci-fi, so looking to give this one a go, perhaps in Sci-Fi September. The last 6 of these I picked up at a book fest, so they're a little bit rough around the edges, but for a couple of bucks a book, you can't be too mad. First one I got was Contest by Matthew Riley. I have read this book before. I am interested in rereading it now that it's been 5 or 6 years. This one is based in the New York Library. I'm pretty sure there's an alien in it, or a creature they're all running from, and they've got a... It's a contest in a library, which is cool, and I'm looking forward to reading this again at some point. This is one of my favourite Matthew Riley books, which is second to another one that I'm talking about in a video later this month. The next one I picked up was The Prodigal Daughter. This is by Jeffrey Archer. This is a follow-up to one of my favourite historical fictions, again, which I'll talk about in a video later this month, called Cain and Abel. The next few I picked up were because I've heard these names, I've not read anything from them, and I am interested. The first one is Baker's Boy by J.V. Jones. I heard about J.V. Jones over on Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and I have touched upon this book already in my The Booktubers Made Me Do It video, so I'm looking forward to getting to this one at some point. It says, at vast Castle Harvel, Where King Leskith lies dying, two fates collide. In her regal suite, young Melanandra, the daughter of an influential lord, rebels against her forced betrothal to the sinister Prince Kylock. In the kitchens, an apprentice named Jack is terrified by his sudden, uncontrolled power to work miracles. Together they flee the castle, stalked by a sorcerer who has connived for decades to control the crown, committing supernatural murder to advance his schemes. Meanwhile, a young knight begins a quest, leaving behind his home and family to seek out the treacherous Isle of Larn, where lies a clue to his desperate search for the truth. A wondrous epic of darkness and beauty begins. That was well timed. Old car. It's got very small text and a lot of pages. I don't know if I'm getting to it, but I'm looking forward to jumping into J.B. Jones and finding out for myself if it's an author that I enjoy. The next one I picked up was Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. Now, I've recently watched Sarah Reeds do a video on Tigana, which has just convinced me that I am going to enjoy it because I have heard mixed things. I don't want to know too much going in, I just want to jump into this world, so I'm not going to read the back of that one for my own selfish reasons. The next one I picked up was Colours and Steel. This is the Fencer trilogy by K.J. Parker, book number 1. I'm hoping to find book 2 and 3 in the next Books Fest that I'm going to, which has a million secondhand books. Isn't that just nuts? So I'm going to that one next weekend, and I'm hoping to find the rest of the series. If not, maybe some more KJ Parker to add to the collection that I haven't read yet. Who knows? I have 2 so far. Let's see how many we come away with. And the last one that I picked up was The Crooked Letter. This is by Sean Williams. This is an Australian author, which is the reason that I picked it up. And a nice sort of classic feeling fantasy cover with those bordered edges, and I do not know anything about this. This is the Books of the Cataclysm number 1. It looks pretty desolate and desperate, and that's what I like to read. I don't know what that says about me as a person. Anyway, the back of this one says, Hadrian's mirror twin Seth is dead, stabbed in front of him, and the woman he and his brother both loved had seemingly disappeared. Spicy. As Hadrian searches for her, the cityscape becomes more nightmarish by the second. Figures from legends swirl around him to help and hinder. These figures give dark hints of secret histories and sleeping gods stirring. Was everything he ever knew about the world a lie? Caught between ancient forgotten magic and an uncertain future, Hadrian must learn to trust in the only person he has left. Himself. So on the back we've got some endorsements by Sarah Douglas, Fiona McIntosh, and Jack Dan. I believe they are all Australian authors. Don't quote me on that, but I know Sarah Douglas is. They are the books from the book haul in the month of May. Have you picked up any books recently? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this content, give it one of these. If you want to see more of it, then click subscribe at your will, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.